Good morning, patriots, floaters, and real Americans. If you were watching the live stream last night with me, thank you. I appreciate that. The float stream will be announced again shortly and with much more notice and without the audio popping and issues there. I had the microphone was boosted way up because I had to unplug it and then replug it in right before we took off. And then because I did that, my settings did not stay. Anyways, let's talk about a particular individual in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. And the toxicology report that we have. And let's just go through the itemized list of things that were found in this individual, because it's important to know, we can say it's fentanyl exclusively, but it isn't. There are many other things that, especially compounded on one another, make for a cocktail, a terrible concoction of things that will kill you. So I think it's important to walk through them. I hope you'll join me. Oh, I'm sure you've noticed I'm wearing my white hat this morning, but I actually just got this from the Vistaprint folks. Apparently you can upload any image on Vistaprint within reason, I suppose, and they will just print whatever you want. So I got a, hold please, got a sleeve of nice stickers. You'll see those in places. I also decided I'd get a little aluminum placard so I can put that in a nice place because I got to fix the sign that I had. That said Trump Pence out front. I'm sure you could do it on any site. I just used that one, Vistaprint. They're not a sponsor or anything. I just thought I'd mention it because I have been blocked from ordering things with Trump in it from other sites. So that's why I'm making mention of it. And now on to the individual in Minneapolis with the toxicology report and the medical examiner's report. Within it, you can see they write, no life-threatening injuries were identified. So they examine the body. They see no facial, oral mucosal, or conjunctival pedichet. Maybe I'm mispronouncing all of those words, but I can read into the no facial, no oral, or conjunctival, so no eyes, mouth, or face issues. He was not wounded in some way. B, no injuries of anterior muscles of neck or laryngeal structures. So neck, back of neck, side of neck, throat, all fine. No scalp, soft tissue, skull, or brain injuries. So no head injuries, outside or in. No chest wall, soft tissue injuries. Rib fractures other than the single rib fracture from CPR, which would be expected if you've ever seen CPR done correctly. Vertebral column injuries or visceral injuries. So no injuries of the torso. Okay. E, the incision and subcutaneous dissection of posterior and lateral neck, shoulders, back, flanks, and buttocks, negative for occult trauma. Negative for trauma. Back, flanks, buttocks, shoulders, neck, etc. All negative for trauma. Okay, so no physical, life-threatening injuries were identified. Doesn't sound like many injuries were identified at all. No soft tissue damage. No bones broken other than when doing CPR. Okay. Now let's look at number 6 there, the toxicology. They say see the attached report for full details. Testing was performed on the blood specimens collected, etc., etc. And then they say here, blood, drug, and novel psychoactive substance screens. Positive for the following. Fentanyl, 11 nanograms per milliliter. Norfentanyl, 5.6 nanograms per milliliter. There's a trace amount of another drug there, so we won't look at it because it is such a small amount. There's methamphetamine, 19 nanograms per milliliter. Then you've got a little bit of THC. Then you see cotinine, so that's like a derivative of nicotine, caffeine. And then you see blood volatiles, negative for ethanol, methanol, so he was not drunk. Urine drug screen, presumptive positive for cannabinoids, amphetamines, and fentanyl and the metabolites. Urine drug screens confirm morphine. Okay, so there's morphine in his system as well. So the cause of death was ruled strangulation and subdual by police in tandem with health problems, in tandem with drugs, right? That's essentially what it is, substance use. The problem is if you just look at the toxicology report and the medical examiner's report of the body before he watches the video, which in his report he said, I didn't watch the video because I didn't want to have any bias. Then I looked at the body, I did my report, find that it was likely the drugs and the stress of the situation that causes the death, but then I watched the video. And then as the medical examiner, I watched the video and I decide it must have been the police subdual first, and then all of the other things. That's what the medical examiner wrote, which is how the city's allowed to say the cause of death is what they're claiming it was. But again, let's go through each of these and just see if that really holds any water, if that really makes a lot of sense, or if you can look at this and say, well, clearly, when you have fentanyl in your system, and it says 11 nanograms of fentanyl. Fentanyl obviously is a controlled substance. It is a high risk for addiction and dependence. It says, this is from Wikipedia, can cause respiratory distress and death when taken in high doses or when combined with other substances. Again, when combined with other substances and when taken in high doses, can cause respiratory distress, like not being able to breathe, and death. Okay, well, you guys probably all knew that. What is norfentanyl? Norfentanyl was what he had 5.6 nanograms in his system of, right? This says norfentanyl is a major metabolite of fentanyl. It has a role as an opioid analgesic, which is a painkiller, and drug metabolite. So it's like what your body breaks fentanyl down into and then uses up. Okay. So it's a byproduct of the body's breaking down of fentanyl. That just tells you that this individual had more than 11 nanograms of fentanyl in his system because he'd already broken down so much of it that he'd had another 5.6 nanograms of it built up in the form of norfentanyl. That's a ton more than just 11 nanograms to start with. Just to clarify on what a drug metabolite is, because this is all still foreign to me. I'm not a doctor. A drug metabolite is a byproduct of the body breaking down or metabolizing a drug into a different substance. The process of metabolizing a drug is predictable and certain. Everyone metabolizes drugs the same way. Okay, so you can do the math and determine toxicity of a person's blood based on the different drug metabolites that are in it. So the medical examiner can see this tox report and say, oh wow, the amount of fentanyl in this person's system wasn't just 1 or 2 times what a lethal dose is. It's like 4 or 5 times that. Maybe more. Just to add to that as well, in 1993, they were studying what fentanyl and the metabolites, norfentanyl and its other despropanol fentanyl, I can't say that one, what they look like in urine, and they were studying what the different ratios look like after surgery and then after the samples have been taken from patients. And so after days, people had fentanyl still in their system, but had way more norfentanyl in their system, meaning as the body is working through the amount of fentanyl it's been given as a painkiller, it's still able to process more fentanyl and turn it into norfentanyl than you see otherwise. So just think of it in terms of the fentanyl in your body being way outweighed by the norfentanyl that your body's creating out of it. Another way to think of it is the norfentanyl is the processed fentanyl. So in this individual, you have a ton of fentanyl in their system with only a 50% ratio of norfentanyl. So they're just beginning to work through the fentanyl that they've just taken. They're on it, and they're only just beginning the high. In 1993, they knew the half-life of this, so to speak, in a person's body, knowing that everyone metabolizes drugs the same way, that you would expect to see way more norfentanyl in a person's bloodstream than you would, or in urine, than you would fentanyl, if they were processing it. So just to prove that it's not fentanyl was in his system because he took it days before. No, that would show tons more norfentanyl in his system, which he doesn't have. This is also the methamphetamine in his system. If you're not familiar with methamphetamine, they use meth to treat ADHD, also to help obese patients lose weight because they get strung out. You ever seen a meth head? You ever listened to Hitler's speeches? He was a meth head. It's also a controlled substance. It can cause rapid or irregular heartbeat, delirium, panic, psychosis, and heart failure. Okay, sounds like a terrible hallucinogenic panic attack that could kill you if you're just on meth. But that is not even including being compounded with the other drugs that you've already seen say they have worse side effects than that, upper respiratory failure, death, that can be worse or worsened or increase the likelihood of if you add these things, like rapid and irregular heartbeat, delirium, panic, psychosis, all the things that this person exhibited to police officers in May of 2020. Now, they say methamphetamine overdose and fatality is actually kind of rare. So a lethal dose of meth would be 200 milligrams. They say the average dose used is anywhere from 5 to 60 milligrams. And he had, 19 nanograms in his system. So I don't think that's even a lot. But this also points out a non-lethal dose of methamphetamine and morphine can be lethal together. This is a fatality from an oral ingestion of methamphetamine. If you're chewing up your meth, if you have a bag of drugs in your hand and some of it's meth and some of it's morphine and it's just this terrible little concoction that he's picked up and some of it's fentanyl and he starts chewing it and he's chewing bits of it in the car, then maybe you would see a fatality from an oral ingestion of methamphetamine, because apparently that'll do it. So again, I'm not a doctor. I can't read exactly what all of these different drugs mean in terms of their scale and how much of each, but I can look and see. Simple Google search tells me that meth mixed with morphine can be fatal. If you chew up meth, it can be fatal. All of these things were found in this individual's system. Then you look at morphine and see what that is. It's obviously a narcotic. It can be used to treat severe pain, so it's an analgesic as well. They say it's a controlled substance. Obviously, high risk for addiction and dependence, can cause respiratory distress and death when taken in high dosages or when combined with other substances, especially alcohol. But while he was not drinking, he had a ton of other substances in his system that each say they cannot be combined with others. And so here you are taking a big concoction anyways. They say a very serious interaction will occur with other drugs, with other alcohol, etc. Then you have cotinine or cotinine. This is just what your body breaks down as a metabolite, I believe, of tobacco. So he had some tobacco in his system. Maybe it was a spliff, because he said he also had some THC in his system. Then he had nicotine and caffeine, in his system. So he either had some coffee, he had a nice Americana, or maybe he had an energy drink or something else, but he had some caffeine in his system to boot. So when this individual and his family is paid out this giant multi-million-dollar settlement because the city of Minneapolis wants the people to think that the city is responsible for paying him for the death, for a murder, when really you can see so many more overlapping factors underlying what would probably otherwise be called, and the medical examiner said, if this person were found untouched by any police, it would be an acceptable ruling of an OD, an overdose. But because the police are involved, we'll blame the police. And so the city wants everyone to think that it's the police's fault. And the reality is these underlying factors pointing to an overdose are more likely the exclusive cause of a death. So don't do hard drugs. Listen to police. Like the juror said, if this individual had listened to police and done what the police had instructed, none of this would have happened. Ruh-roh. So that's what I had wanted to share. I wanted to get that out there, that this toxicology report more than proves that these individuals who are going to be rioting are rioting over an overdose of a criminal who is COVID positive. Anyways, that's it. That's what I had to say. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you could, help me keep America afloat.